Hello everyone, this is Timothy Mark with Alexandria.
Hello everybody.
And we are the Tickle Trunk of Horror show. The website is tickletrunkofhorrors.com. The Gmail is tickletrunkofhorrors@gmail.com. And we are also known as World Paranormal Research Society. And if you want to contact us to do a paranormal investigation for you or someone you know, you can contact us at World Paranormal Research Society at gmail.com. I'd like to first start off by saying, well, let's go to the theme song. The theme song was by Ryan Dottery out of the UK. He has a website, ryandottery-music.com. And I'd like to talk about my aunt right now who's in the intensive care unit. So that's not very good. For a lot of you that don't know, I was raised up with my cousin John, and we were like brothers at one time. And over the years, we've drifted apart. Actually, we were like brothers all the way up until the time he got married. And when he got married, for some reason at that point, we drifted apart. But we've never had hatred towards each other. And I haven't spoken to my aunt in a while. She just sent me a friend request a few days ago. And on Facebook, she just finally got a Facebook account. And now she's in an intensive care unit. So I hope that she pulls through and everything works out on that end. But for today's show, it's called Medium to Medium. And we have a special guest. The only name I know her by is the Cosmic Doc, unless you have another name for her.
Yeah, that's what she wanted to be known by, or that's what she's known by, is the Cosmic Doc. She's a psychic medium, also an empath, and she does a lot of work in regards to numerology. We're going to let her tell you all about her latest book that she has published on numerology, and she's based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and she's also a historian, and it's refreshing to have somebody on the show that is a medium, or I'm more, I'm an empath, but I do have mediumship abilities as well. So medium to medium is a topic of our show, and it'll be refreshing as well to speak to a fellow historian. We'll have a lot to talk about today in regards to, again, I'll let her talk about her book, Numerology 101, Everyday Numbers, Decode the Vibration, again by the Cosmic Doc. We'll talk to her in regards to that. And it's also refreshing too. She is a musician as well, so a lot of people that are psychic mediums are actually artistically inclined, and she does that. She gets her message out, I'm assuming, through her music as well.
What type of music does she do?
I'm not quite sure. I didn't want to spoil it. I wanted her to go into great detail in regards to the music that she did go into, and it's going to be refreshing again to talk to somebody, psychic medium, historian, empath, musician. She just seems to be...
She's a fellow author with the Numerology book, which is another reason why we have her on the show. So we have her on the show because she's a medium and a fellow author that deals in numerology. And it'd be interesting to note if some of her music delves into the paranormal or astrology or anything of that nature.
And it's sometimes it's hard because there's a lot of competition. We all know in the paranormal field, competition is very tight, and a lot of people don't like to work together. And it can be like that too in the psychic medium empath world, because I've come across a lot of people that don't like to share when they work with spirit. They become very possessive, and there's a lot of competition out there. Everybody, for people that are doing it for the wrong reason and only doing it for money, they're the ones that are not wanting to discuss and talk with other empaths, psychic mediums, because they're out there to, not all of them, but they're out there to maybe fleece you of your last dollar, and that's really a shame, because that's not truly working with spirit if all you're worried about is your fee.
Everybody should work together for the greater good to help people, and that's what your gifts and abilities should be used for, to help people. That's why you're gifted. A lot of people don't have a gift, and they pretend like they have a gift, And like Alexandria was saying, they run scams and get money from people. So we try to have legit guests on here. Although I will say I really do not know this person. This is somebody that Alexandria knows. And so I probably will end up being kind of just paying attention to the show, really. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a whole lot of talking because it is medium to medium. So we'll have to just play it by ear and see what happens.
And again, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody that is a psychic medium or an empath is a fraud, but there's a lot of people out there. When you're running into people that are taking advantage of people that are grief stricken, and people are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars in an attempt to get a message from a departed loved one, there's something really wrong with that picture. And I feel sad that there are people that are making money off of the grief of people, but it does happen, and you just got to be very aware that this happens out there. But there are real psychics, there are real mediums, and there are real empaths. You just have to learn to decipher between the two. And I mean, if somebody right from the get-go, when you meet them, asks you for money right away, I would put a red flag up there, because there's something not right there.
Well, I want to say that I believe the Long Island medium is legit. I do not believe that Sylvia Browne was ever legit. I've been watching videos on Sylvia Browne because I was looking for something good to say about her for this show, being its own mediums and psychics. And actually, she's failed so many times in the public eye, and she's failed on so many questions that clearly, you know, I was watching a reading she was giving the parents of who had a daughter who died, and she was telling the parents that she was shot and killed, and because she was assuming that the girl was missing, but turns out the girl actually dropped dead in her bedroom and was not missing. And so, you know, it's Sylvia Browne. I have nothing good to say about her.
And I think at one point in a particular interview, not to spend too much time on a psychic medium that does not deserve the attention, I think at one point she was charging $700, I think, for a 20-minute session. And my mouth just dropped to the floor. And these are grieving parents that are just so desperate to get answers about a missing child, a missing family member. And, you know, when we're in that situation, a lot of us would kind of pay almost anything to get an answer, and she really was taking advantage of people.
Yeah, all the money she was charging. And then there's another guy I was watching last night that was on a lot of other talk shows, and he was getting things wrong as well. And actually, he was on The View. It's a clip of a psychic medium on The View that was on YouTube, and I was watching his readings, and they were all wrong except for one.
Is that the one that was able to bend forks and knives?
No, this was a different one. The one that, yeah, the one that was able to bend forks and knives, that proved that he was actually fraudulent. There's a guy named James Randi who has a YouTube channel, and he goes around debunking people who claim to have psychic gifts to where they can bend things. And he was actually duplicating the bending of things.
And I mean, fraudulent people have been around forever, because you know, when the height of the spiritual movement in the Victorian times and into the beginning of the 20th century, where spiritualism was huge and it was high fashion to have a seance and a psychic medium come to your house, I mean, that's where we seen ectoplasm and all these miraculous, mysterious things, spirit photographs. It was all part of that era where people were just fleecing people and, you know, trying to put a sham on everybody.
But if you're going to pay hundreds of dollars to a psychic medium, the two legit high-profile mediums that are out there, when I say two legit high-profile mediums, will be Kim Russo and the Long Island medium. And so, you know, to book them costs a lot of money because they're so busy and they do tours. That's the only reason why. Sylvia Browne was not so busy. She was actually just preying on people that were grieving. So you know, what a disgrace to the gift, you know.
And it all, you know, there's always people out there in any profession or any line of work or any anything that people do. There's people that do it for the wrong reasons, and then there's people that do it for the right reasons. And then it's up to us to be able to decipher who's legitimate and who's not. And I mean, these dial-up mediums, dial-up psychics, where you're putting your credit card on the phone for whatever it is, a minute. Please, please, folks, stay away from that.
All
Please
right,
stay
here we
away
got
from
an
that.
incoming call right now, so hold on. Hello, welcome to the Took a Trunk of Horror Show. You're on the phone with Timothy, Mark, and Alexandria. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you all doing?
We're doing good. Is this the Cosmic Doc?
It is the Cosmic Doc. I'm really excited, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you for being our guest. We were just doing an intro for you, and we had a question that neither one of us had an answer to, like, because we know that you do music. Like, what?
I do a whole lot of stuff, yes.
What category does your music fall into?
I would say more like trance percussion, so it's a percussion band, and we have over 75 albums on Bandcamp, so if you want, I can send you a link, but our band name, and it's all spirit-led, but the band name is Amalgamy, and it's the breakdown of it is amalgamation plus alchemy, so that way it was like divinely ordained that we just come together. So yeah, we integrate like drums from all over the world with band kits sometimes, but we've been playing across the country and really integrating all of this with like meditation and really getting people to celebrate themselves. And yeah, so anyway, that's the genre. You know, percussion. I've heard some other people say psychedelic. I'm like, I love it all. People are paying attention. So yeah.
Yeah, if you send us a link, what we'll do is we'll put it in the description when we release the podcast.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that when we get off whenever you want, or right now, or whatever.
Oh, you can do it. You can do it after the interview. That's fine.
Okay, sure. That sounds good.
So, you know, first of all, I mean, the title of our show is Medium to Medium, and how refreshing and enlightening to be able to have a like-minded person that is the real deal, legitimate on the show. You have no idea how refreshing it is to have somebody that's working with spirit for the right reasons. And when I mean right reasons, it doesn't entail the almighty dollar sign.
Right, thank you. And I feel like I've been blessed and fortunate in, again, divine ways, because I get to bridge two worlds that would seem very separate, and the anchor in all of it is spirit. And I say that because when I was a child, apparently I predicted all of what I'm doing. So that's where it's exciting. You know, I told my mom, like, she'd say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I just want to study ghosts and murder. And that's exactly what I study now. But I was, you know, to hear that from a child, it's very jarring.
Exactly.
But that is exactly what I do. Yeah. So, again, thank you. The gratitude is certainly on this side. I'm very humble.
Now, since you brought up your childhood, we usually go into that later on in the show, but since you already brought it up, what we'd like to ask every one of our guests is, I'm assuming as a child that you participate in the Halloween festivities?
Oh, very much. I was all into it. Because, you know, I'm a kid and I wanted to do what everybody else did. Yeah, I was Cookie Monster. I was, you know, everything you can imagine that. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't understand it, you know, as deeply perhaps as I do now with the opening of the Veil Between Worlds
right.
You know, that way. But, yeah.
What would have been your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, my favorite Halloween candy. That's so funny. I guess I'll just say Reese's, because, you know, that can span generations. But I realized as a child at times I was eating the same candy as my grandmother's, trying to, you know, be like them. So I really would have said a Heath bar.
Right.
But, yeah.
That's awesome. So when you're talking, it's right now you're situated in St. Louis. Is that kind of where you grew up, in that area as well?
No, actually not. Again, it was, you know, all spirit-led. But I was born in Pittsburgh, and my parents moved to Atlanta, so really I spent the majority of my life in Atlanta, and I'm so grateful that I did, because that was the spot. in a lot of ways, but it would take many years for me to put all the pieces together. And then after Atlanta, I would go to North Carolina and go pursue my bachelor's. And then I went to Columbus, Ohio. And then I went to Ohio State. And then I went to Michigan State. And everywhere I lived, spirit kept popping up. But I, again, was still learning how to put the pieces together. The 2000 really was the turning point for me. And since then, I can look back. I realized I just wasn't talking about it. But I've always sort of been in my own category or world of extra sensory and paranormal and all of it. Everyone would just say, oh, that's just past,
Right.
So it's later on that then I was able to walk into the past more deeply, to be on the radio for some time here in St. Louis, and then also to integrate it in all of what I teach the future through my college courses that I teach.
Right, because you said you spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and as we know, there's a lot of history in Atlanta, so it must have been a spectacular backdrop for you to kind of come into your own.
It was, and I'm grateful that my parents, they just nurtured the special, the unique, and then it would be later on that, both of them would say, walk into it more deeply, but again, it's just coming now, many years later, that, wow, oh my gosh, spirit was working with me all the time.
So you're saying that, because I know a lot of, particularly when I was growing up, my parents did not embrace the gifts that I had, but it sounds like from what you're telling us and our listeners that your parents encouraged and allowed you to kind of bloom like a flower, a spiritual flower.
Yeah, and in unexpected ways. And I say that because fundamentally I was fortunate to come from, both sides avid readers, so they impressed upon that within me to understand the power of reading, to understand storytelling, to understand Black history, culture, evolution, and then also to be open to your spiritual path, but while also respecting other spiritual paths. So my parents gave me choice, and that was the best thing that could have been done for me, because it's just so easy to assume or try to make clones into ourselves, but they recognized that there was just more to me and my being. So again, they gave me choice. They're like, whatever way you need to walk your spiritual path or in spirit or the universe. I grew up with those conceptual understandings. It was like a vibrational living.
Let me ask you this question. What was the most significant spiritual experience that you've had as a medium?
Well, the whole conversation on medium and mediumship and me stepping into it and understanding it has come later in my life, but I had very profound, throughout my entire life, there's always been those moments, but it was just trying to translate it for people that would try to shut it down and say that it wasn't there. But I had always saw spirits around, but the profound sort of turning point was, I'm a high sensory empath, and it's multifaceted, and in that way, I could experience touch between worlds, a smell between worlds, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and then, I could be on the phone, I could be on TV, I could feel everything. I could feel, what people try to hide on low levels and massive levels. But anyway, that said, age 11, I was in the shower, singing and dancing, and then all of a sudden I felt a hand touch me on my back. And it, of course, freaked me out to be that young for something like that to happen. I ran and told my mom, all right, so I touched this guy, hello, and yet she was like, nobody's there, I don't know what you're talking about, you just made it up. And that became a whole other turning point. But apparently I cut off my gift, or so I thought, at age 7, because spirits used to come in and around me all the time, that I blocked it out until later on my parents had said, you don't remember you used to sleep with us every night, because spirits would crowd into my room. So it's just been, the human past that we have to remember, reawaken, and really deeply understand who we are and our purpose that really began as a child, but at times we get shut down. And then later on, it becomes reactivated.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because I know at some point when I was a child too, I just shut down, and I have a lot of gaps in my memory where I can't remember things as a child, and I think that's when spirit was oversaturating me, where I couldn't emotionally and physically handle it, so I just kind of blacked it out until I was able to kind of, because they were all around me as well, and I mean, and as I'm older now, spirits are around me at all times, and I've just learned how to maybe categorize, contain them, and manage them.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what's been really unique about my past, again, to show just sort of the blurring of the world, has been that, again, I mentioned about 2000 was the turning point, and this was me coming back from Ghana, and the first thing was that I would be asleep, and I would hear someone out in my living room of my apartment playing my drum. Like, and I could totally tell they were trying to wake me up, and I was totally freaked out, like, whoa, in the world. So, and that kept happening all the time. And then I would feel spirits or kids jump into the bed, you know, trying to wake me up. So that became the beginning river flow connection back to spirit. But it really has been my writing, and I think when I sent, you know, we were doing the early on correspondence, I had mentioned about this article that I wrote, but there really are two articles that have a parallel to spirit. And what that means is that apparently I'm an open light and an open channel, and for whatever reason, especially to murder victims, and so that has meant that a woman who was murdered and left for dead out in the ocean in 1791, she appeared in a flash image standing at the foot of my bed in about 2003, and then I would go on to write an article chronicling the final moments of her life, and that came out in 2011. What's also interesting is that it would be a British journal that saw value in this black woman's death and murder. But then another murder victim showed up, and it's really interesting. They're 100 years apart. So there was another woman, another black woman who was murdered, but this time in 1891 in Kansas City. She was stabbed and left for dead in the middle of the alleyway, and she appears by smell in my car.
Wow.
And then maybe, yeah. And so I have a lot of psychic friends and shamans and stuff. I'm really grateful here in St. Louis. And so I just called like a close friend who's, very in tune psychic, and he had just asked me this murder victim's name. Her name was Effie Jackson. He had asked, like, do you know Effie? And I was like, what? He said, Effie Jackson. I was like, then I just uncovered her murder a month ago when I was at the archives. And he said, well, she wants you to tell her story. And I was like, well, I don't even do that area. But we'll see. And then 6 months later, I uncovered 55 newspaper articles across the country that chronicled her murder, and then her murderer started coming around, and then the boyfriend who was the sort of the apex of the story. So I have been this walking channel, but just didn't realize that everything I do is all connected. So that just only like expanded the mediumship that I work in the ways unexpected, but they flock to me. In fact, the woman who was murdered in Brazil earlier this year, Mariela Franco, within 12 hours of her murder, she showed up in my living room. And I didn't even quite know what to do. So, yeah, again, I'm a light, like we all are.
So what you're saying is, and I'm just going to just kind of focus on the 1891 Kansas City murder victim. So when you're saying that murder victims come to you, like, do you also feel the pain, that, the physical pain as well as the emotional pain upon their passing?
I feel it vibrationally, but I don't know about how they felt on their passing. It would just be more, I feel them vibrationally around, because everyone has a distinct vibration, both living or so-called dead, and I just have an acute awareness to be able to discern through a variety of senses, their presence here and there, because that was only starting to expand at that time while I was writing it, and since then now, it's full sensory. But that said, weekend when I was in the car, it just only began. It just began in terms of my feeling her presence. But then also the woman that murdered her started coming around. And since then, there have been other murder victims, more and more and more, who some even, like, their paths even crossed. It's just so, all I can say is I'm grateful, but I realized it's unusual to find, like, basically someone who is tenured and teaches college, and then is a psychic medium and almost like a latent one that no one, like my abilities are very rare and unseen.
Yeah, because it's very, even me, when I speak with other people that are empaths, psychics, or mediums, it's very, very rare that you have an individual that has the ability that you have, that murder victims, you're almost like a human barometer or a human EMF meter. That's the way I see it, is that you have that ability in your DNA. Well, you don't need a piece of electrical equipment. It's wired in your DNA. So that's why the spirits of somebody that has passed over in a violent fashion they're attracted to you, like you're almost like you're a homing device. And
I've heard that before. I've heard that, like, I function very much like a human computer because I can digest, remember, feel, move between worlds. I can really understand time and space by hearing, seeing, reading, any of that. But just like you said, it is a very acute sensitivity, and yet the future, there's going to be more. There's going to be more. And I think, too, of course, that people are trying to activate their own light within themselves, those sensitivities only increase. But for me, I would just say, like, I read a lot. I'm very much a nerd because I want to understand. I want to deeply be able to empower and convey things to other people. And so that said, it's just wild that, like, age 40, I'm just really starting. And everything you were saying, I could feel. Because as you were reading me, I could feel the telescope in your third eye beaming out and tapping into that information. So, yeah, it is very unique, and I'm grateful, and I just look forward to doing more. I could do it in my sleep. It's becoming even more easy.
Yeah, and I think, too, I mean, there's how we categorize people, or how a lot of people categorize people on how many people that are truly awake. And there are so many people that don't know how to awaken their third eye, because it takes work. I mean, just like anything in life that's worthwhile, you have to work at it. And if you have an ability, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm not. I mean, you have to hone your gifts, and you have the ability where you know how to tap into your third eye, mold it, and to be able to use it. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. And I think, I don't know if you do this already, but I think in the future, I could see you giving classes on people to tap into their psychic abilities, to teach people.
Their psychic abilities.
Yeah, to say,
I've been getting asked a lot to do these mediumship development classes, because I'll also add in, and maybe in the future if you all are interested, because there is a very, very, very unique, you think I'm unique? There's this woman who has become a mentor and friend to me, that she for 30 years, and wait till you hear the other part of this, that every Monday, absolutely, without break, for 30 years, she has hosted a channel group. And I started going to that channeling group, and Bruce, like, when I showed up, she predicted that I would be doing what she was doing, and I was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But what she does is she invites people to her table, and then she will deliver a spirit message, and then we go around the room, and, if there are mediums in the room, then we feed everyone at the table. And so for me, my gifts are even better in the dark. I can see you so much more clearly in the dark than I can see in all ways. But that helped me to develop and really hone in, just like you were talking about, in, like, developing and activating and really nurturing that skill set. It can come through a book, it can come through movies, it can come through a variety of mediums, but for me to be able to sit with spirit, and what that meant is that I was the only one at the table that would have these ongoing multi-dimensional experiences that, like, I would feel when certain people who have abilities to spirit walk, who can do that although not dead or whatever, I would feel them walking around, running around. I could feel and see angels and just spirits and loved ones. that would, and also spirits that would fall on the roofs and the back of the house and all of it. So anyway, that said, just connecting myself with the right people, going to spiritual festivals, as well as taking workshops and classes. So I've long been a teacher for now like 18 years. So I look forward to doing even more of this, and I've been attracting more people to me, so that way we can continue to, bring a newer perspective and expand all of what's already happening.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of DMT?
DMT, yeah, I have.
Have you ever used it?
No, I haven't. No, but I've heard some profound experiences. I'm almost scared.
Well, see, the DMT gland that's in the brain, when you're born, it's a gland that's developing and stuff as you grow, but it's not calcified yet. So your third eye is very much maturing. But with fluoride, what that does is it calcifies your DMT gland, which is your third eye in your brain, your antenna,
right,
so to speak. And there's a lot of people who's less calcified that has this ability to do other things that other people cannot do.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as you were talking the entire time, it felt like somebody winding up a doll, meaning like I could feel yours just turning up even more in higher dials as you kept talking. So thanks for the profound experience.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I think, my motto, or kind of my philosophy, is that if those that have been given the gift of spirit, we have a responsibility to try and guide people that have a similar gift that may be lost on the path of self-awareness. Part of having a gift is the responsibility to help, and knowledge again is power.
Absolutely. And then, using it in the right way to help people, like you said, with all of now, to have a version of doing it the right way, and for the collective. And when I say the collective, that means it doesn't matter what age, what race, what culture, whatever. Like for me, I think my life experiences, and then also being honest, living between centuries, which I don't really hear a lot of people think about that or talk about it loud. But yet to go from one century to the next and begin to see the evolution, the patterns within society, the world, and also within oneself is, So I'm just surrendering more and more. I'll be honest, when I got to St. Louis, I had perfect strangers that would prophesize what was coming. And I'm still, beginning to walk into that path of full understanding, because I've always thought I was just regular, like everybody else. But then I realized I have this ability to see and feel into people, where I feel your potential and I feel your greatness, even if you're still trying to catch up with it. So for me, that's where I've always been so humble, like, oh my gosh, you can do that. That's great. We all can do this. Because I've been known in many places for a different way. I've been good at pretty much everything I've done. But that's not bragging. What it's doing is saying that I've been walking the path, but also to see the beauty in the world, and I'm grateful for this life path and the learning, and just continue to manifest in my life.
Yeah, because what you are, you've actually reached a level of exceptional. We call it exceptional, where you're now being able to, it's like-minded people are able to recognize themselves or recognize each other on a different wavelength or a different level than other people. We're able to tune into someone that is similar to us. There's different tiers, there's different levels. Working with spirit, has different pathways, different levels, and we're all at a different stage on our journey. And I think if we can recognize, and we can say, make suggestions to people about meditation, vibrations, and everything, we're only the better for it, because we're just reaping the rewards of our gift and being able to share it. That somebody that maybe has, so let's face it, to everybody, life gets in the way, and we may put our abilities on the back burner. We have a lot of stresses in life where we may say, oh, I can't do this now. But we always have to have the ability to be able to, it's like, he ain't heavy, he's my brother kind of thing. And that's the way we look at people that are in the same pathway. Sometimes we got to be able to lift up and carry people that have fallen.
Right, absolutely, and that's where I'm grateful that I've been attracting as my heart expands and opens in all the unique and divine ways, then I attract those to me, and likewise, as I keep hearing other people say, I manifested you, I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, I just would say in prayer, and I was asking for a guide, a friend, a mentor, or this or that, and so just to meet like-minded, because there are so many powerful psychics and shamans here in St. Louis. It actually blows my mind how many people don't realize that. So that's what's actually helped me to live to higher levels. And so through that, I've been doing a lot of event planning, in order to continue to stay in the vibration. So I'm also a Karuna Reiki master. So I've been doing a lot of the energy work, light work with vibrations, and then bringing people together. So, being in this gateway, it's been a gateway to self. Of course, again, the gateway to the West here has meant for me a gateway to a deeper understanding of the cosmic God.
Exactly. And now that you mentioned that, I want to go into our listeners too. I was really, really excited about your book, Numerology 101, Everyday Numbers Decode the Vibration. I love how you keep using that word vibration. That is so refreshing.
Thank you. Thank you. And I wish I could say I knew when it started, but I think just in the normal lexicon with friends and family, it just started evolving over time. And that said, I'm grateful to have two books, one that's academic, but the Numerology 101 Spirit was on me this summer because my father transitioned in June.
I'm sorry to hear that. So sorry.
Oh, thank you. I miss him, but I will say, too, that book was a thank you, a testament, and also just affirming what he said. And he was speaking it in the same way. You had mentioned about you need to empower other people. He was like, you just know so much, start with the numbers. And I said, okay, come on, let's go. So I had been, writing down, I would channel, I would just sit and I would let it come through. But I've always had this ability to see more than the average in what we use, numbers and letters. And so I'm actually finishing up another book that is offering the same way of looking at letters because, again, Spirit just allows me to see, but that said, with numbers, it just tells everything. The year we're in, it's numbers. I mean, everything is a vibration and a unique thread, again, a vibration of some sort, whether through the cell phone number, our soul contract, all of it. So I'm glad I got that done. And it's been amazing how many people have been responding to it. And then when I do a workshop and, I explain about the book, but then I read people based on their birthday and their name and really decode their soul contract again, if you will, they're blown away. So to me, it's just empowering other people where you can learn this. This is easy, and you just teach yourself a little bit every day, and that's what I've done my whole life.
Well, that's
even through the numbers.
That's awesome. For some of the listeners out there that may not be familiar with this terminology, could you explain to everybody what tuning forks is all about?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, because Spirit came quite profound to me with tuning forks. I didn't know anything about it until a year ago, and I got a reading from a psychic in Chicago, but the lead up to it, all high vibrational. I didn't even know whether I should go. That said, I showed up, knocked at this woman's door, and when she opened the door, she looked at me and was like, "Can you come with me?" And then she had mentioned, like, I would love to do a tuning fork session with you. And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And so she pulled out these, like, silver, metal-looking, two-prong devices, if you will, that look metal, and they have a distinct sound. What I didn't understand at the time until a year later is that also on tuning forks, which they go back for centuries, that they've been used and understood as healing modalities that are non-invasive, they also have typically 3 numbers on them. And so there's what they call the Solfeggio scale that has the variation of numbers. I mean, not just the variation of numbers, sequences on the tuning fork, but more importantly, it's a mechanism of healing that is based on vibrations and a different vibration. So I use them in my Reiki work. I pretty much do Karuna Reiki tuning fork sessions, and what I do is I go through the entire scale, and that is all nine tuning forks. And to me, 9 is that full body. It's coming to the higher mind, but it's that full holistic. And so I go through all of it. And as a vibrational medium, I can walk around the table when someone's on the Reiki table, and I can feel everything going on inside of them. What some people may call a medical intuitive, for me, I just kind of look at it as a vibrational medium, but I'm able to then use both hands-on Reiki as well as using the tuning forks to clear energy, to cut energy. So when we think, oh yeah, I made it through that experience, emotionally it can be still connected to the body, or etherically it can still be connected to the body. So it's sort of like really going through as a healer and trying to cut the cakes of residue energy from moments that became triggers that then erected like an entire energy field that at times can be a little wonky. But nonetheless, tuning forks are the future of healing. I also teach medical history, and so I'm able to see and understand the history of medicine and then get where we are now, that people want that real holistic, where it includes both our aura, our magnetic field, as well as the physical body, emotional, and the psychological. So, yeah, that was a lot.
And you know what? As you were describing this to our listeners, I had this vision, and I'm going to just describe it in layman terms. The best way that I can say is that I seen you. Actually, it's just almost like you were on Arabian flying carpet, and you had gone back about 1,000 years, and you were slowly drifting forward. And I had that visualization in my mind as you were describing that.
Wow. Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you for sharing that.
It was just...
Well, it's profound.
It's just amazing. Like I said, as you were speaking, it's just like you had your persona is you're a very old soul, and you were just transporting back and forth through different time periods. And what you do is you're almost like a psychic or a sponge, that you're absorbing a wee bit from each time period, and then you're coming back and forth to share that knowledge. And that's why I think I see you doing a lot more of these courses, classes, and even online classes in regards to developing people and kind of helping people in the proper way.
Right, and in the way that feels good, that we feel it in our soul. Because again, I know how to lead us with the mind. Sure, here's the book, let's talk it through, the intellectual. But then there is that other side that, as you had mentioned earlier, about that goes to the DNA, it goes to the cellular, and then yet it goes to just our entire being and divine core of connection to something so much more. So I honor, I receive, and I just thank you. It's amazing to even hear you explain me to me. I'm always struck when other people will read and tell me these sort of things, because I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? So I'm just so grateful.
I appreciate that, but it's just like you're, again, to use your wording or your terminology, your vibrations, I can see or feel them on different levels too. And I mean, I see much more than, or feel much more than your, the sound effects from your voice. It's the inflections. It's a whole bunch of things that is an ability in itself to be able to, for a lack of a better word, again, read somebody. And again, I'm a historian as well. It's very refreshing to have somebody that is a historian, because again, it stems to the terminology of being an old soul that is on many journeys, different planes, different levels, and you have the ability to, it's almost like when you're going to the IMAX, you, instead of putting on these IMAX glasses, you have them built into your DNA, and you walk around and you see the world in IMAX glasses, and that's a special ability.
Wow. Thank you. And then I think back when I was a kid, and where we are now in the future. If the language had been there, I mean, yes, my parents nurtured it, but the language of crybaby, when I look back at that, it was just high sensory empath. So everything. And to add to that about old soul, because I've always heard that, and now I'm starting to get a deeper understanding of it, but I've had past life regressions, I've had, just past life readings, readings and really come to understand the many lives that I've lived. And one that is really unique and coming through in this life that I'm just, like I said, it becomes mind-blowing, but then it makes sense, is I had, again, my mentor tell me that apparently in the past life I was a Native American man, an extremely, extremely high sensory, but the thing is that we live sort of, you know, more in the woods and you're shielded from sort of the excess of vibrations of the everyday world. And so now to have that essence of myself come in this form of a black female born in the 1970s and yet so sensitive in the exact same way has meant having to manage vibrations a bit more deeply than the average person, even down to when I eat food, that I have to do Reiki on the food because I can feel the emotions through the food of how someone felt. And typically we forget that when people make our food, we are transmitting vibrations. And so there have been times I've been caught and I found myself crying uncontrollably until I stopped eating something that someone had cooked, and then I realized, wow, you know, again, when we're just like really looking or thinking with any deep intention, you can transfer energy to anything. I'm just the one who can really pick it up. So I'm grateful, but it makes that time you have to be aware. Because if not, then you'll think, oh man, what's going on? But for me, I can walk past someone, and then all of a sudden I feel like them, but then when I'm beyond them, then I'm on to the next person. So it's, yeah, pretty high vibrational.
Let me ask you this: do you have the ability to see into the future?
Yeah, I do, but I don't always like pay attention to it because what happens is I'll talk it through. I'll say something, and then people say, "Why you said that?" I'm like, well, I don't know, and then it'll happen. So yeah, at times I can feel it, I can see it. I feel like at times too I can jump into the past as well.
Well, if you got are you picking up anything on me and Alexandria?
Oh, with the two of you?
Yes. Anything at all?
Oh, again, with the both of you on the phone, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to make sure nobody. Yeah. So before you even finish asking the question, I immediately felt this overflow from the heart. It's coming out and pouring in the most profound and unified way, meaning that the work that you're doing together becomes this even tighter thread and cord of connection that will move out beyond dimensions and the multiverse and all of it. So right now, as I'm talking, I can feel this full river flow coming out of your heart, both separately but then unified in this way that again, has the potential to transform minds and deeper everyday living and understanding.
That's amazing. I find that absolutely fascinating, and I think you really touched on that.
Let me ask you another question, because you mentioned being a 70s kid. So you would have really loved the decade of the 80s. Were you a horror fan during that period?
Yes, I was, and I should not have been, and my dad nurtured it, because I guess I would buzz the mess out of him and say, oh my gosh, Dad, can you take me to go see Halloween? And then I would go, and then I would get scared halfway through, and then I'd be like, we gotta go. So then he said, then I would still ask for the next one. So I was in the Freddy Krueger, I was in everything, but it was so high sensory, that it was too much. But even still now, I'm drawn to that. I always have been. Horror and crime, I have been drawn to it my entire life, and the supernatural, I will watch it on 24/7 if I could. I love the visual.
What's your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, horror of all time. Oh, let me think. I didn't expect this. I should have known. It's October. You know what? We're just gonna keep it classic, keep it iconic. What y'all like, Carrie? But I also like Friday the 13th. I'm just thinking about this whole remake, and looking at that coming back. So those would stand there for me. But over time, there's been others. So, yeah. Right. And, of course, the meaning of horror and any of that has just begun to evolve in so many unique and fascinating ways.
And I think people that are psychically inclined or have an ability, empath, we really look at horror differently than people. So it takes on a whole new life than just horror. I mean, we have a different, you know, the saying is that you look at life through rose-colored glasses, but we sort of have, our glasses are the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is 5D, it is 12D, it is everything. Because I'll share with you and the listeners, only those who are close to me sort of realize this, so again, when I mention it, but there have been many profound times where I'm watching TV, watching some crime show, and the murder victim will come walking into my bedroom or to the living room, and then come sit on the bed, and then watch themselves on TV. And I'm sitting there like, okay, is this for real? Am I really seeing this? And then, but it happens, like, repeatedly. I mean, and it's not even just murder victims. It'll be just people who have transitioned that all of a sudden somehow my seeing them on TV activates, and then they just show up. So it's been, yeah. So when I watch TV, I just think to myself, poltergeist is so real, but times 1,000 for me, in a whole other way, because there is no boundary. There is no beginning and end that we traditionally are told, like, you know, that you would be separate from things and people. For me, it is very much all immersive on the vibrational scale.
Well, it's the same way as bats with sonar and stuff. You just have a psychic sonar, and the people that have transitioned, they can pick up on that sonar. As you're like a beacon, because you have your feet in both worlds, and not too many people have that ability to be able to teeter, have one foot in one world, one foot, and you walk around 24/7 like that, and all of a sudden your sonar is like a beacon. When you know how bats communicate, whales communicate, you have that on a psychic level where you're a homing device, you're a beacon, and it's just almost like a psychic lighthouse, that your lighthouse beam is 24/7, and people are, you know, in the dark or whatever, as they've transitioned over, they see that lighthouse.
Yeah, they do. And I'll say that this year especially, because over the past year there's been like 25 deaths of people that I've known, or friends of friends, or just different things. But what that's meant is that they've come to me, some of them, a good bit of them. And so it's been having to just prepare myself for that understanding. And when it first happened, like earlier this year, I lost a friend, and within hours, he like just showed up in my dining room, and I could feel him, I could see through him, and then I called my teacher. She was like, he is running around your table, and I was seeing him. She was like, he's running around your table because he feels like you are the one who saw into him the deepest. And I never thought that. I thought he's a great guy, but I never thought my abilities were on that level. And then he just started coming around. When my father passed, I was connected with him in between his passing, or when he finally did, when his soul contract ended, basically when his body was done, when he was done sort of hosting his soul within that body, I was with him the whole week before he passed. He was here in my apartment, he was chasing the cat around, and so it is just walking in gratitude that, you know, when I talk to people, it is very real and very tangible ways that I can feel, and it's only deepening. So, yeah. The other thing, too, has been to experience angels and archangels coming around, and I didn't know anything about that for a long time, and then it's only intensified, that I'll be on the phone with somebody and I can just feel, again, this higher vibrational beings of many kinds come in around people, and I feel it just like them. So it's like ghosts on, again, 21st century level.
Right. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. And could you share to some of our listeners, too, how do you keep yourself sane through all this? Like, how do you keep yourself spiritually tuned up?
Sure. And I get asked that a lot, and I would say the greatest channel to keep me tuned up is the music, because when I play, when I practice, when I'm playing, or when we lead these shamanic drum meditations, or when I'm leading different music-based meditations or workshops, it charges me up. But then, before I leave, before I get, as I'm getting up in the morning, I'm activating what I want. And yes, it's prayer, but it's being very intentional and raising my vibration. So that's how I feel when I get up. And then throughout the day, I think about what energy that I can work with. And again, so the music, also herbs, bee pollen. Oh man, it's amazing. It would shoot you to the moon and past the moon. You just have so much energy. The other thing, then this is coming all back to the numbers, is that I know who I am. I was born on the 5th month, on the 5th day of the month, on the 5th day of the week at almost 5 o'clock. Nothing about a 5 stands still. It is energy. And then I'm an ace of spades, so that means that I came here to bridge the world's secrets, mysteries, and to be so driven. I'm a Taurus, I'm a moon in Aries, I'm a rising Libra, so to me being this balance and this scale, but yet making sure I get sleep, using the right things to nurture or activate what it is that I want, but energy comes very easily to me, so I don't lack for that at all, but I just channel it in the right ways, and I ask for what I want. I ask for the energy, I ask for the clarity, for the purpose, and then also being action and driven oriented.
That's awesome. So for our listeners that are listening out there, how can they get a hold, what's the best way to get a hold of you so they can kind of start honing in and you can sort of guide them to the right frequency in their lives?
Sure, you can. Let's see, I'm in a variety of mediums, but of course, how we connected on Twitter. So I am the Cosmic Doc on again at the Cosmic Doc on Twitter. I'm also on Medium. Same thing, the Cosmic Doc. And then I have a page on Facebook, Vibrational Medium, the Cosmic Doc, or the Cosmic. I can't remember because I've been moving through a few. But also, I was going to say my email is the Cosmic Doc, TheCosmicDoc @gmail.com. So I'm always available and ready to give, insight and guidance and, just wisdom on the path.
And I had a question for you too before we
Sure.
let you go. Is that you said that murder crime victims come forward to you? Have you thought of, and maybe in the future, writing a book about all your encounters with these murder victims coming forward? Because I can tell you, it'd be a heck of a read.
I have to say, I am so open to it. It's been, making sure the academic side is attended to. And now I want to tell what I would love to. So I look forward to it. Maybe, we'll see what the future holds. But sadly, crime always happens. People pass away, murder victims happen, this, that, and the other. But it's the ability to connect, and I think you're right, like to be able to tell people. And I will say, too, that there's a Brazilian medium, I don't know if you know his name, Chico Xavier. He passed away in the early 2000s, but my gift very much matches, but he attracted even more people in a profound way where he could channel through writing. And yet, it is through seeing the movie The Astral City that I was able to understand about, like, how you can channel those abilities and then connect between these worlds and, be that everyday person and that medium that will channel through writing. And that's what I'm inspired by, which is that I can tell all day, but yet there's a legacy and there's the things that can outlive me. And to me, that's more interesting, that I can, like you said, leave something to the world to begin to embrace the reality of multidimensionality.
Well, we'd like to thank you for joining our show today. And
well, thank you.
If you send us any links that you'd like added to the podcast, we'll definitely put them in the description.
Okay.
And
I'm just so grateful to talk with you all. This is just amazing.
Yeah, it was great having you as a guest. I'd like to say that you were very clear. We could hear you good, and that's awesome. Good. We look for that in all guests.
To me, it was a huge honor to have somebody that is truly gifted, working with spirit, is on the right frequency, and is doing the right and correct thing with their gift. It's like a refreshing breath of psychic air, and I can tell you, you are headed for big and great things because again, you're doing what you should be doing with your gift, and it's such the honor is all ours.
Wow. Well, Well, thank you, and I really look forward to us building on the future and collaborating in whatever ways we can, and also my introducing you all to other people who are just powerful and walking the spirit path. So, but again, thank you immensely through the dimensions and from the bottom of my vibrational heart.
You are most welcome. It was a truly honor.
It was. The honor was on mine, but again, I'm really in deep gratitude. So, thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Take
Have
care.
a good
Have
one.
a great day.
Okay, you too. All right.
Bye-bye.
Some blessings. Okay.
Okay, so that was the Cosmic Doc. She's into music, mediumship. She's a Reiki master, and she's also a fellow author.
Historian, and
Historian.
she has the unique talent of having victims of crime, murder victims coming to contact her. We could have talked for hours, folks, but what an amazing guest. It was awesome.
And I would like to say that we're going to have a live show coming up pretty soon where people can actually ask questions during the show. And so we'll look for that soon. If you're not a member of our Tickle Trunk of Horror page, become a member of the Tickle Trunk of Horror page. So it's on Facebook. And what else you got?
We're going to be having more amazing guests join us. Again, a live show. And we hope that everybody is all gearing up as the month of October unfolds. 'Tis the season. One of the greatest. Halloween is totally awesome. We were blessed today to have the Cosmic Doc join us. So what a refreshing show, folks.
So that's it for us. Talk to
Take
you
care.
later.